Welcome to a special edition of the Raw Food Health Empowerment Show. I have on here one of my favorite people from the Raw Food Health Empowerment Summit, Kadedra of Eat Fresh Veggies. Welcome, Kadedra.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here. Like you mentioned, let's talk about Goldenrod, and I'm like, what's Goldenrod? So I'm
Yeah,
really
right.
happy that you brought it to my attention. It's a beautiful plant. I see you have it in your hand. Maybe can you tell us like how you got to know this herb?
So like many of us, I am just getting passionate and fascinated with herbs. I've been studying herbs for about 3 to 4 years now, and I'm a homegrown herbalist. I really just started with the herbs in my neighborhood. You know what I mean, and in my local area. So wherever I find myself is usually where I pull out my phone or pull out my camera and then just look at the herbs or what's growing around me and how I can use it. So that's how I got led to goldenrod. Actually, yellow is already one of my favorite colors, and I found myself, already attracted to the beauty of the plant. I mean, it's a very vibrant, gorgeous plant. I had saw it kind of growing in the grocery stores, or you know what I mean, being for sale in the grocery stores. But, kind of look it up and get curious. But then I was like, well, I don't want to buy it from the grocery store anymore. I want to forage it myself. And that's when I it revealed itself to me that it actually was growing right in the backyard. So already being attracted to how beautiful it was, while already seeking out herbal remedies for which I didn't have to go to the grocery store to buy. I could just find them. So that was the initial reason why I found this very good.
Nice. And so what made you start engaging with it? Did you grow it yourself? Take it as an herb? Like what are
No.
the benefits of it for you personally?
Um, well, first, I don't grow it myself. I can. I have seen it grown in pots. So if you're interested, you can pot it up and plant it in your house. But for the region of the country I live, between Georgia and Virginia. So that southeastern corridor, it just grows,
Hmm.
right around. I mean, I don't know if you can see my background, but I mean, it's actually growing in a field right behind me. It's actually quite invasive. So I actually just go out, like even right before this interview, I just went and picked it and just bought it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
And
don't grow it myself, though.
you're right now in South Carolina, right?
Yes, right now I'm in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay. So this was grown when you first engaged with it. Was it growing in Georgia?
Yes, so I saw it in Georgia first. So if you, especially in Atlanta, which was the area I was in, but if you live in the Atlanta corridor or especially on the outskirts and you start getting into the country, I mean, it's very identifiable. It's a very bright yellow plant, and we'll get into the difference between goldenrod and ragweed. So we'll go more into the identification of it. But yeah, I did first see it in Atlanta when I was there, and then when I got to South Carolina, I was like, wow, it grows all the way here too. So it is a very easy to find plant, especially if you're living in America. Um, but yeah, I can talk about the health benefits of it too. I know I'm kind of going on it. I just really love this plant.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us why you love it. What are the benefits?
um, so some of the health benefits. A lot of people know goldenrod initially for having respiratory health benefits. So it can help to work up that mucus that's in your lungs. It can be combined with mullein, um, peppermint, spearmint, you know what I mean, other lung health herbs to, you know what I mean, kind of help work up mucus and protect your lungs from disease. But some lesser known facts that or ways that you can use the goldenrod is for skin rashes, skin irritants, especially being outside and in the field, bug bites, you know what I mean, is something that just kind of, is kind of just par for the trade. So having the remedy, readily available, growing right out of the ground is something really beneficial too. So bug bites, skin rashes, and skin irritants. I have also used it, just drinking it, for like stomach digestion. So it's kind of one of those herbs that I kind of classify as an all healing herb. It can be used inside, for your lungs, for your digestive health, for your skin. Your skin as an organ. But I've also used it for my hair. I've used it, brewed it as a tea, and have ran it through my hair, to help protect from mold, mildew, and also insects. So it's actually a very beautiful plant. The fact that it is so readily available, I mean, it literally is growing in a whole field behind me. And this is just the field. It's so readily available. It's so good for you. It stores really well. And it's just something, it's a very hidden treasure that is growing all around us. We just have to discover it.
So you would think is it like, would it be growing in New York, Chicago, LA, or just like more like southern country states?
I mean, I would look for it. It does like warmer climates. When I traveled to Virginia a couple weeks ago, I didn't see it as much. But there are over 75 species of goldenrod that grow throughout the East Coast. So, different species favor different environments. It's definitely worth looking at. But, for me, I mean, those who are interested in foraging or foraged herbs who may not have them in their area, I just go online. I mean, I am kind of in the herb community, so I've just bartered and trade with people from different regions. Be like, hey, can you forage this for me? You know what I mean? I'll pay you for it. And, it's a whole little club.
Yeah, I know, because I've watched some people, like when you told me about goldenrod, I had to do some research because I had never heard of it. And I've heard some people say it is, talk about like what you mentioned about it being invasive. So like, how can you tell? And then some people even say like it's, they get like allergies from it, or it gets blamed for allergies, but it's not really that causing the allergies. It's the ragweed. So how can people tell the difference?
So the main difference between goldenrod and ragweed that you can really see immediately, without much investigation, is the color of the flowers. So goldenrod is noticeably has these really bright yellow. Different species may have more of like a mustard yellow, some more vibrant and more, kind of bold yellow. But nonetheless, the 75 species do have yellow or off-white yellow flowers, while the ragweed just has these green bulbs on it. So the first noticeable difference is the color. The second most noticeable difference is the leaf structure. You'll notice, I mean, I don't know how close you can see, but you'll notice that of the goldenrod, it has these like straight, kind of like hairy leaves.
Can you put it a
really
little
narrow.
closer?
Yeah. I'm trying to get as close as I can. Definitely Google this, guys, But yeah, it has more like a straighter leaf versus the ragweed can be a little bit more jagged in the leaf structure. So those are two immediate identifiers, but I always recommend that people take a picture of it, because even with the ragweed, the green bulbs can have a slight yellow look, especially in the summer. So I think it's really worth to take a picture of it, take it home with you, definitely study the leaf structure. That's a tall tale sign. If the flowers don't get you, the leaf structure usually helps you further identify and confirm what you have. So, and that is actually very correct in what you said, that it is the ragweed. Now, some people can be allergic to goldenrod. It's very rare, but it does exist. Some people just are allergic to it. But a majority of, as you mentioned, the allergies is caused by the ragweed. So, yeah.
I see. So you had mentioned too, like using it for the skin. Is that something you've done?
Yeah, so I have used goldenrod for the skin. Like I said, this is actually like my first summer really getting into goldenrod. I had seen it many times before, but I always say plants like reveal themselves to you. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a teacher. It shows itself when it's ready for you. You know what I mean, or when you're ready for it. So what I've done with it so far is I've used it for my skin and I've used it as a hair rinse. Actually today with this bundle that I just grabbed, I was gonna go ahead and make a tea with it and also dry some out for the winter season. So when I used it for my skin, I just used it just as a general. Like I didn't necessarily have a blemish or an itch. I just used it just to give it a try. It has a very beautiful fragrance. Smells really good. The color is very captivating. So I love it. It's done my skin really well so far.
Yeah. So when you say use it on your skin, you're talking about brewing it as a tea and then using the liquid on the skin, or are you making a balm?
So that's actually a really good question. I use it as a bath. I use it as, almost like it's like tea, but a whole bathtub of it. So, I'll brew up a giant pot of water, brew it up, and then just add it to my hot water bath. So I use it, through our skin is the largest organ. You know what I mean? So that's how I like to take in my herbs sometimes.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that certain blemishes that I did have definitely cleared up since I started using it.
That sounds really luxurious, actually. I don't know how many people still take the time out for an herbal bath. I mean, that's like, wow.
Yes. And I really recommend everyone follow me. I mean, like, I really am in a space where I'm realizing that I do a lot of really cool things, and I would love to share more. You know what I mean? Especially with you,
Yeah.
Girl, I'll be up in that kitchen. Just making magic,
This thing, what you're saying, reminds me of a story I heard from my mother, right? Who normally she co-hosts the show with me, but when she was a young girl, she was really sick, and she was put in a bath of herbs, and the people from the church came and prayed over her and cleared up whatever she had. Like, she's been healed ever since that moment. So it's like the herbs, but also the community, the prayer. But when you tell me of this, it's like, this is so ancestral. This is like, the things we used to do before modern medicine and all this kind of stuff, and capitalism and everything. Because I'm like, when I think about bath, I'm like, but who has the time? You know what I'm saying? You jump in the shower, you jump out, But yeah, that sounds really nice.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I'm really happy that you mentioned that, because I like to take people down in layers. But that's really what the root of all this is I'm not necessarily teaching or educating. I'm just reminding people of things that they already know. Like skincare, like healthcare. I mean, I'll say them one and the same. Taking herbal baths, you know what I mean? The time was just made for it because it just made sense. You know what I mean? That was just part of routine. So, I mean, like you mentioned, we've been inundated, you know what I mean, with a very secular and very straightforward way of processing medicine. And though that is a form of medicine, taking an herbal bath, which has been used especially through Western African culture, of putting children in herbal baths to clear diseases, combined with community, prayer, food, eating healthy food, drinking tons of water, you know what I mean, it has just as much been, it is a valid form of medicine. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm actually really happy you mentioned that, because that's kind of what all that we're really talking about here is is how we've always been practicing medicine up until about like 150 years.
Yeah. So, since this herb in particular is so invasive and it gets confused for ragweed, which I'm assuming is not useful. I don't know too much about it, but I'm assuming ragweed's not useful. Why do farmers even grow it? Like, this land behind you, who does it belong to? How did this just start to like propagate everywhere?
Well, for starters, I'm just in like an open field. I don't know who owns it. I mean, I just like found something green and sat down. But one of the reasons why farmers do like to grow goldenrod is because it's really good for pollinators. So it's really good for pollinating, our pollinators such as bees, butterflies.
One
um,
came by.
I'm out in nature, so it's really good for pollinators. And it's actually like really crucial in the sustainability of a healthy ecosystem. Actually, as I was talking, the goldenrod that I have in my hand right now has insects on it. I know some people are like, "Oh my god," but I mean, we're really just one thing. But it has insects on it. I mean, it has little bugs and little spiders. Were on it. I did shake those off. But yeah, I mean, it's really crucial for a healthy ecosystem. The root structure really helps to keep the soil in place, which is really good for other beneficial crops such as cloves, such as alfalfa that add nitrogen to the soil. So, the root structure is really good at kind of binding, the land in order to make it suitable for other crops to grow. As I mentioned, it's really good for bees and butterflies. And the way that it pollinates, because it pollinates through pollinators instead of through the air, such as ragweed. It's not as an irritant. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's usually because ragweed pollinates through spores and through releasing its pollen through the air. We breathe that in. You know what I'm saying? It's very much the ragweed, everyone. I promise you.
We have a couple people live with us. If you have any questions for Kadedra, please do put them in the chat, and I will make sure to ask her. In terms of what you have going on, so you appeared for the first time in the Raw Food Health Empowerment Summit, talking about your journey to high raw veganism. How is that raw vegan journey going now, and how are you? How does these herbs and things kind of complement that whole lifestyle?
It has been quite a journey, as always. I think every time you ask me that, I'm going to give the same answer. It has been quite a journey. I am moving into a space where I am about 80% raw now. The 20% where I do cook food. Before we hopped on the interview, we were just talking about some food I prepared last night, and it's whole foods, black bean burgers. We're not using any faux meat, or honestly, I'm not even using carton milk anymore. I used to buy almond milk and coconut milk. Now I literally just use hemp seasoned water. I just make my own. So yeah, I'm about 80%. With the weather changing, it always gets a little more difficult to do raw. But unlike every other winter, I'm going to stay raw this winter. Not going to let the cold season deter me.
Yeah. So in South Carolina compared to where you were before, I mean, is the weather the same?
The climate is a little warmer, so I'm looking forward to that being at least making the raw vegan eating a little easier. Mm-hmm. But, I'm just looking forward to being exposed to new plants. I mean, goldenrod being one of them, being exposed to new fruits. I mean, even today, it's that's why I always call it a journey, because my boyfriend, he comes back to the truck. We were at the truck at the time, and he brought these little oranges, and I was like, "What is these?" And he was like, "Oh, it's from my mom's, palm plant. She has a palm tree," and I didn't know those were edible. And it really got me thinking, wow, food is really being produced at all seasons. So, once the commercialized food isn't as popular due to the winter season, I'm excited for the new plants that I'm going to be discovering that actually do produce food during the winter. I just never knew. Mm. So yeah, it's really been a journey to reconnect to food.
So it seems like every time I talk to you, it seems like you go on these nature walks or something, and you find these things just out in the environment, which I always tip my hat to folks, because I'm like, yes, please try it so I know it's edible and I won't die, because I can't be the test subject.
Oh.
Aren't you scared?
I used to be, but fear lies in the unknown. And with knowledge comes confidence, And when I first saw this plant, you know what I mean, I thought it was something poisonous. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it didn't look edible. It didn't look familiar. Let me put it that way. It didn't look familiar to me. But I just really took the time to really give food a chance. There are so many edible things that literally are growing in our front yards that we really just have been stigmatized to disassociate from. We call it a weed. You know what I mean? I mean, we remember the commercials where weeds were like, you know what I mean? Like, we've been stigmatized about what actually food really is. So I just really kind of gave nature a chance. And I mean, I've been humbled. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to brag. This is new for me too. I've made mistakes. I've misidentified things. So I'm being very grounded. You know what I mean? That I didn't just go out there and be like, I know all these plants. It was a learning process. But every time I was humbled, I learned something new. And I didn't learn this overnight. I really just took the time to just get on the computer and just read, what is goldenrod? What does the leaf structure look like? And I can understand how it can be a little intimidating. But I've learned to take that intimidation into abundance and be like, look at all of these plants. You know what I mean? That I'm able to eat, recreation with, drink, share, medicate myself with. Like, it really, what was once so intimidating has now become so abundant. And it's really just an adventure. It's a 4-hour adventure of taking pictures and reading. And then once you do find, oh God, I can do this with goldenrod. Okay. And then it just becomes, you're just having fun, So I get it, but it's really for us to allow ourselves. And that's why I keep saying reveal. Like, this kind of revealed itself to me when I was ready to not be afraid of plants anymore, So it's really an us thing. The plants aren't going anywhere, So,
Yeah. And you're talking about food that survives in the wild, which is why herbs are so potent to our bodies and are so healing. Because a lot of the foods that we're eating, they wouldn't stand up just in nature, they wouldn't survive. But so, yeah, that's great. I love that you brought this to my attention as well. I will need to look it up and see how I can purchase it. I live in Orlando, Florida, and I've never seen this. But if it's covered in bugs, I would never see it because I stay away from the bugs. So yeah, but thank you.
They're more scared of you than you are afraid of them.
I assure you that's not true. I assure you. I assure you. And I know for a fact because I've just been living here for a year. So I'm still getting accustomed to things. And we just had a season of love bugs, which I had to look up because I'm like, what is going on? Like, near my gym, there was just all of these flying bugs everywhere. And like, there was two, I wasn't sure if it was one with two sets of bodies or two bodies. And it was just, and I walked through one and they were all over me and I was screaming and no one came to my aid. They just did not care. So I had to look it up because these people here, they're used to it. They were born and raised here. Probably they're just used to these love bugs just being everywhere. Now they're no longer here. I don't know where they went, but it was pretty traumatic. But now I understand. Now I understand that they're not harmful, even though it's really scary to look at and to experience for the first time when you're not aware. And the fact that I screamed and no one cared, that was like, whoa, come on, guys. Oh, my cousin Danny's on. He said your background reminds him of Jamaica. Yeah, Danny, this is actually South Carolina. Is it mountainous over there?
Yeah. It can be. I mean, it's a little hilly, but it's still relatively flat. But that goes to show you know what I mean? There's beautiful green jungles. I used to really think that I had to go to Jamaica to get this. You know what I mean? And then I took a moment to really just look around me and I was like, there's abundance everywhere. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
Peace
yeah.
out to Jamaica. Hello.
Definitely. And I love like even in Jamaica, I think it's like it's a global movement I'm seeing where folks are just walking around fields and identifying herbs that are just growing in the wild all over. And it's lovely. It's a great educational experience. And I think eventually, like people like me who are a little bit more timid and feel more security getting stuff from the grocery store because we know it's gone through, you know, approvals and certifications and washings and things like this. Eventually, we'll get to a place where we feel more confident just doing like our ancestors did and going out and being able to identify, you know, what is healthy and healing and what is poison ivy or something, you know. Just having
Yeah,
that
it's really
intuition.
just about training the eye. You know, it's just really about educating yourself. You know, once you know, you can't unknow. Once you know that that plant made you throw up, you're not going to touch that plant again. Please don't pick things that make you throw up. Do your research, but
Do you use any apps that help you to identify them?
so I do plant. Oh, what is this? I think it's called Plant Leaf. I can't remember it. Honestly, I just typed in plant identifying app. I didn't actually like click on anything. Um, no, it's called Leaf Snap. That's what it is. It's called Leaf Snap.
Leaf snap.
And I like that one because it doesn't give you the answer. I like that one because it gives you relative. It gives you about like 10 to 15 of what they could be. So I don't know about y'all, but I love to learn. So it actually gives me an opportunity to learn about 14 other plants while I am researching this plant. And it helps you better identify lookalikes because it gives you about what it could be. And it helps you kind of be humble to the fact that, like, wow, you know what I mean? Anything, I really have to learn how to do this, you know? So.
My mom is watching live. Shout out to mom. She says this can also pull inflammation out of the body when you use it in your bath. Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah, that's another use that you can use for it is anti-inflammatory in as a tea or as a poultice. If you're not familiar with what a poultice is, it's basically like a Band-Aid, but with herbs. It's like a little cloth pouch that you can make, and then you put your herbs or oils in it, and then you just put it directly on the skin. So mom's is right, yes. On the lower back, especially because people do suffer from back issues. But yeah, I've seen or read it and have seen it used as like a poultice put directly on the skin for inflammation, aches, muscle aches, tense muscles, stiff joints, etc. So.
And Phil joined us. Welcome, Phil, to the live. He says, I think I have goldenrod in my backyard, and he's actually in Tennessee. So it does seem to be noticed in the South. Yeah, it seems to be in the South. So, yeah, I definitely encourage you. So you experience winter in South Carolina, right? Like you're going to get snow or no?
I don't know about the snow. I know that the temperature is going to drop. It has already dropped. I am learning to embrace. I'm learning to embrace that drop. But I don't think it gets too much snow. But I mean, since we're on the topic, as I mentioned before, I'm actually looking forward to seeing what plants, what foods grow in the winter. While it's actually snowing or while the temperature drops. Some plants actually do better after the first frost, you know? So I'm kind of like shifting my mindset to like winter, you know?
Yeah, I'd be curious to know. So folks, definitely follow Kadedra on Instagram at Eat Fresh Veggies. And I would love for you to like share your journey because I'm curious to know like what medicinal herbs are out there in the cold season. Like, you know, what can survive that? Because I would imagine it would be really powerful stuff, you know? We have Phil in the chat. Kale, broccoli, brassicas. I didn't know we coming. I guess all of that stuff he's growing, which is awesome.
I feel like I'm gonna butcher this. I forgot how to pronounce it. You're cruciferous.
The cruciferous.
I'm probably butchering how to say that.
Yeah,
those do really good. Especially when you grow them as groups, it can actually like heat the soil up and actually like basically
Mm,
create its own little incubation. So those do really good. Persimmons.
my
I don't know if you all
favorite.
are familiar with persimmons grow really good in the winter too.
Yeah, so interesting. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look and see because I remember at one point I wanted to grow persimmons. I think I was in Chicago. I'm gonna have to figure out if I could even grow it here in Florida because I love them so much. They're so good. They're so good.
I had to link up in the winter time because I didn't even show people these persimmons. They actually do better at like in the middle of December. And it really helped
Oh.
me be like, wow, like food doesn't only grow in the spring and summer. I know, right? Like we really thought that food only grew for 3 seasons. It
I
grows for
mean,
4. Like,
the grocery store, like when you look at our fruits and vegetables, they're being imported, during that time. I know, like, even everywhere I've lived, New York, Chicago, California is a little different because they grow a lot of food year round, but like definitely on the east side and central of America, like the stuff that's available in the grocery stores in the wintertime is being imported from Mexico and wherever else. So it makes sense. It's like what's gonna grow, here. We just don't know. We just don't know. Although in
I
Chicago in the
get it. I get it.
wintertime, they grow kale and put it out as landscaping.
Oh,
Not
wow.
just because it's
Interesting.
so pretty, just as a decorative thing.
That's interesting. I wonder if that, yeah, I have so many theories, but yeah, that's really interesting. And I know this is a little off topic, but I just want to throw it in there that you'd be surprised how many companies actually are planting food but are calling it ornamental plants. Elderberry, for example, like a lot of times you can find it growing in your grocery store parking lot. Like it was planted there by a company because it's got these beautiful white flowers, but they're planting edible herbs. So yeah, I don't know. You saying that
Wow.
really made me like how how we do import and how them putting kale down as an ornamental plant. So I don't know. I could really go into how we like associated with plants and edible food to now we're like afraid to go forage food, but like it's planted in like city centers. I don't know. It's a whole thing.
Yes, yes. I love this whole movement of growing food, not grass. At least that's the tagline that they use down in these parts. And I love that because I mean, you talk about neighborhoods that are suffering from food insecurity. So even when they're getting sick because their immune system is down, something like elderberry being grown just, that you could just take home and wash and you didn't even have to pay for it. People are paying big
Yeah.
money for this at the herbal store when their immune system is down. So,
Mhm. You got to go to the herbal store. They're paying for the same plant. Like, I really wish I could kind of show you guys like the rest of the land where I am right now. But the one thing I find very beautiful about it is it's a meadow. It's a meadow. I'm sitting in a meadow. This was not put here on purpose. People did not put seeds down. Birds dropped seeds or the wind brought them in. You know what I mean? And it's. I mean, I'm looking at copious amounts of food growing right underneath my feet right now. So it's interesting that when you bring up not only food security but community medicine, we've put down grass. Grass is the most inedible plant to humans, not because it's poisonous. We just can't digest it. And out of all of the, I argue, billions of plants, you know what I mean, or herbs that grow in this world, and we deliberately put down the one plant that we can't digest. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
when I say being in a meadow, turn your front yards into meadows. Like let the dandelions grow. You know what I mean? Like let the burdock root and the plantain leaf grow, the crabgrass, the onion grass, because that's food, that's medicine. And I'd rather
Yes.
have that over grass. Can't eat grass. You know?
Burdock root, definitely. Anyone listening to this growing burdock root, hit me up because we want to learn how to grow burdock. Definitely. So Phil says, I hear hostess can even be eaten. He mentioned that the deer in Tennessee eat them. Do you know anything about hostess?
No, I do not. I do not. I never heard of them.
Interesting. And he said elephant ears can be eaten too, or at least the root.
Yep. Yeah, especially if you live in Atlanta, or in that kind of north, or that's where I really saw a lot of elephant ears growing wild, just growing like right on the coastline. Those are
Mm-hmm.
really edible if you're going to eat them. Kind of like a rule of thumb, though I can't apply it everywhere, is it's best to eat them when they're young, because the fiber is a little weaker, so it's a little easier to chew and to digest them. So, I mean, I've never eaten elephant ears, but I would recommend trying to get them. You know what I mean? Because they can get pretty big, and the bigger they get, the tougher that leaf is. Especially that root, the bigger that root is. So if you're gonna eat them, I would recommend eating them within, I mean, not even a year or two. Um, but they grow quite wild by the abundance. I've seen them growing down an entire riverside. So yeah, they're very much out there and readily available, especially in India.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you so much. This has been like super educational and really inspirational in terms of just like what's out there and what's available and the possibilities of our future on how we can have a healthier environment, a healthier culture, just a healthier population by growing intentionally instead of like just random grass. Like I like that whole concept. That like is a whole. I feel like that's a movement that's just budding, that is just gonna grow and grow and grow. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. And for folks who want to learn more from Kadedra, she is a guest speaker at the Raw Food Health Empowerment Summit. So definitely make sure you register for that and check out Kadedra on Instagram at Eat Fresh Veggies. I'm going to drop the links in the chat so you can check her out and register for the summit. Kadedra, what new things do you have going on over at Eat Fresh Veggies?
So one project that I've been working on is a club called Late Night Vegans. We meet every third Saturday here in Columbia, South Carolina. So if you're in the area and you're interested in getting involved, definitely contact me on Eat Fresh Veggies. You can direct message me. I'm also on Facebook. I'm also on Linktree. As I mentioned, you can reach me there. So I have been working on, we actually had our first event yesterday, and it went phenomenal. So I've been working on that, and I've also been working on hosting some more online classes. I really see the need for, helping people and connecting people. And between my traveling, COVID, and a whole bunch of other factors, I've really been working to shift my services more online. So when you do follow me, stay tuned for some online seminars, which will be talking about not only foods that you can eat, foods that you can forage, but more herbal medicine, such as the Goldenrod that we learned about today. So I'm going to be I am currently setting up some some online seminars, as well as from those seminars, doing more personal consultations as well. So I'm kind of shifting my gears from like, you know what I mean, kind of doing more of the events to more personal interactions with people. So I have been kind of cooking in the kitchen, how I can connect better and have more of an impact with the things that I know, and how I can better help people. And doing that online so that, people don't have to leave their houses in order to get this education. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yes, definitely sign up to learn more. I'm definitely looking forward to learning more and seeing all the fun stuff that you find around your new environment. Question that comes to mind, because last year you were living out of a van, right? Like a van or RV.
Yeah.
And so
There's a van.
Yeah, so this year, are you operating out of a kitchen or how is that? How is your food prep thing going on?
When you asked me how I was doing, so much has evolved. So I'm actually going to be moving into a yurt soon. If you're not familiar with the yurt, it's kind of like a teepee style of housing. So me and my boyfriend, we're going to be moving into a yurt soon. We're going to have access to tons of land, tons of property. And as far as my cooking, I do outdoor cooking now. I finally perfected how to build an outdoor oven and an outdoor stove. So that's something that now that I actually have the structure built, we're going to build another one together, me and my boyfriend. It's a little bit bigger. And I'm outside now. You know what I mean? Like, the van was nice. I mean, right now we're living in our van, and then we're going to be moving into the yurt soon, as I mentioned. But I mean, the way I connect with food now is like very with nature. You know, I love outdoor cooking. I love cooking under trees. So I've just had this really amazing shift in how I interact with and talk to food. So I've moved the kitchen outdoors. Is the short answer.
That sounds really fun and nice. But also, there are no bears, I guess, by you, because that was like, or snakes.
No, there are no bears. There are no bears. I mean, that's not to still not be humbled. You know, because nature is still nature. It still exists. And it's really hard to explain, but it's really just a comfort, and it's a communication that you have within nature. I have never been in any kind of dangerous situation. And I pretty much live outside. You know what I mean? I'm pretty much outside. Well, even if I'm living in a van, I mean, I live in a van. Come on, people. But I've never had any negative interactions, especially with animals. I mean, it's been a very peaceful experience.
I can't wait. So are you gonna document everything on YouTube?
I need to, you know,
I
really need to. I be living in my whole world. I be in my own world, you know what I mean? Like, I just be living my own world. But as I mentioned, I really see that, you know, we're in this like age of Aquarius. We're in this time where people are connecting to the land. You know what I mean? People are looking for ways to get outside more and learn more about plants and learn more about plant-based food. So I'm gonna come out from the woods and I'm gonna get on YouTube. So, but I am on YouTube now. I mean, I do have my page now. It's called Eat Plants Travel Planet. So if you want to follow my journey on YouTube, I do have some videos on there. And especially now that I have this outdoor grill, I'm definitely going to be posting some more videos of more of my food creations while doing that. So, yeah.
Very cool. My mom says you are an earthy person and you really love nature. That's why your spirit is so happy. Very nice.
Oh, thanks.
and you pretty much left. You are like deconnecting yourself from the whole matrix because you're building your own like home and cooking outside and foraging food and herbs from your environment. I mean, it sounds very cost efficient, especially now with inflation and everything.
Prices going up, and we ain't foraging our own medicine now. I mean, we definitely need to, because I mean, I'm not going to get too much into it, but there is a shift. There is a shift happening in our society and in our economics, and whether by willingness or by force, we will have to learn how to feed, clothe, and medicate ourselves. So these little bits, this interview, the people who have been blessed to be here with us today, could really be the seed, you know what I mean, between self-sufficiency. As I mentioned in the very beginning of this interview, like, I was not always like this. Like, I live outside, people. Like, you know, I wasn't always like and it just took a love for self and a love for truth, you know what I mean, to, you know, make this transition for myself, for my life. So thank you, Mom. I really appreciate that compliment.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's great. It looks great. I like to watch it because like my spirit feels happy watching you do all this stuff. But I'm born and raised in Queens, so I'm like many steps behind. Many steps. You know, my mom, she says, she's in the chat saying how she used to take a river bath. She's from Kadedra, Jamaica. So like this, like living in that environment that you're in right now and just that's her all day, every day. But for folks like myself, it will take some time. So have grace with yourself. We can all watch Kadedra and be inspired. So thank you for ushering us into this new wave, because I do agree that self-sufficiency is a huge major key. It's a huge major key just to be ready and prepared for whatever this world has to bring to us. We've been hit with some stuff, let me tell you. So
anyway, yes, just it's happening. It's happening. I ain't gonna be the one, but just know that it's happening, and it was always gonna happen. It's just happening right now.
Yeah, we're the lucky ones. Well, thank you so much, Kadedra. Make sure to click on the link and check her out, and make sure to register for the Raw Food Health Empowerment Summit so you can hear more about her story, at least what she told us last year when she was making raw foods in her van. So which I love and I tell everyone about, because a lot of people are like, I can't do raw because blah 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 blah, but you were there doing it in such a limited, what we would consider a limited environment, where you don't have that much space. I couldn't imagine you having all this equipment and stuff in a space like that, and you made it work. And so thank you so much for being a part of it and sharing your story.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to share what I love with others.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Have a great day, you guys.